Hi, welcome back. So my new favorite thing, I guess, is to film a video every 6 months and be like, hey, how's it been? It's been a while. So here we are. Sometimes I just get an itchy itch that I need to scratch of filming a video. I used to do this a lot and I got burnt out real quick. That's my laptop. So now every now and then I'm like, ooh, I kind of want to film something, and it's mainly the itch to edit the video because I loved editing. So here we are. I just really wanted to film something that was more long form content. I've been doing a lot of short form content on my Instagram, Nahomy's Library. If you don't follow me, what are you literally doing with your life? So as you saw from the title, I want to share my favorite books of the year so far. I have 8 books in front of me, or a list of 8 books in front of me, and I want to share just some of my favorite books because I've read a ton of really cool books this 2025, and I think I've read about 40-ish books this year. So I have 8 that I really loved, and of course you are here to add all of these to your TBR. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm gonna get the very first one out of the way because, like I said, people come to these videos to add even more books to their TBR, and I know that you who are watching this, I know that you've read this already. So I'm gonna get this one out of the way, and I promise the next ones you probably haven't heard of, I hope. So the first one that I read recently and I loved this year, 2025, also, all of these are not published in 2025. They just happen to be that I read them this year. So, it's Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. You know her. You know who she is. This is the prequel to The Hunger Games, and this one follows Haymitch and his Hunger Games. So, if you live under a rock and you don't know what The Hunger Games is, The Hunger Games follows Katniss Everdeen, and she's in The Hunger Games. I am sure you know what the Hunger Games are. Her mentor is Haymitch, and basically this book follows his games and how all of that started. It was so good. I cried very much. It was beautifully written. Suzanne, she redeemed herself because I did not like Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Maybe that's a hot take, but I did not like that book, and she did something here. She redeemed herself, so I was very happy about it. The next book that I read is actually a graphic novel, so if you're looking for something that is short, quick, fast, I have The Many Deaths of Laila Starr. This graphic novel, I have never read anything like this. I have asked for people to give me recommendations, and everyone's like, there is nothing like that graphic novel. You kind of peaked. So if you want to peak in graphic novel literature, I guess, read this. So The Many Deaths of Laila Starr basically follows like a fantasy world, and it follows death, and she is kind of out of a job because someone who will later in life create immortality was just born. So this person is born, so basically I guess God kind of says, you don't have a job anymore, so I'm gonna make you immortal now, and you're gonna go to the real world. And then in the real world, she becomes Laila Starr, and she spends her whole life looking for the person who is going to be creating immortality so she can kill them. It is a wonderful, wonderful graphic novel. It is so beautiful written, like the story, the art, everything. It's just amazing. So obviously all of these are 5 out of 5 stars, so read it. It's wonderful. Side note, I have been borrowing a lot of books from the library, so a lot of these are going to be pictures on the screen because I've been using my library and my Libby app, as you should be too. So yeah. The next book that I have is Pizza Girl by Kyoung Frazier. I read this for a local book club here in Cleveland called Weirdo Book Club. Love that book club. Their picks are amazing. But yeah, I read Pizza Girl. This is a coming of age story that follows an Asian American girl, and this is kind of a mix of the movie Juno and then also, what is that movie with Serena van der Woodsen? Simple Favor with Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. It's kind of a mix of those two movies. in this book. So like I said, this book follows our main character is an Asian American girl. She's 18 years old and she's pregnant. She lives at home with her very smothering loving mother and boyfriend, and she is a pizza girl. She works at a pizza shop, and then one day this woman comes in, and every week she orders a pizza covered in pickles for her son, and they become friends, and there's a slight obsession that unfurls in this novel. And I love this. I loved every second of this book. I don't know if it was the writing or that it was like kind of quirky, coming of age. I love a coming of age story. So yeah, I loved it. I hope that you give it a try. The next book I loved and read recently is The Sons of El Rey by Alex Espinoza. I read this for my personal book club, and obviously I loved because it's in this video. Also gave this a 5 out of 5. This one is a multi-generational, multi-POV book, and it follows Ernesto, and he is a Mexican wrestler, so lucha libre, and he becomes a very famous wrestler, like lucha libre guy in Mexico City, and it follows his story from before he becomes like a famous wrestler to when he meets his wife, and then when he has his child Freddie, and then Freddie's son also Julian. So it's all of their stories. They all have different POVs. It talks a lot about like wrestling and lucha libre and like that world, and that was really interesting. It is queer, does have some romance, sports, multi-generational Hispanic drama sprinkled in. She was wonderful. I loved her, and it's such a wonderful like summer book, so read it before the summer is over. The next book I read, I honestly thought this book wasn't gonna be for me. I've had it on my TBR for a long time, and that is Sweetbitter by Stephanie Danler. I feel like I read this book at the perfect time. Like, it was just a combination of like my mood in reading that I was in. Also, the TV show for this book has Ella Purnell, and I just watched Sweet Pea with Ella Purnell and Yellow Jackets with Ella Purnell, so it was just like a perfect storm. But yes, Sweetbitter by Stephanie Danler. This one follows a young girl that moves all by herself to New York, and she starts like in the restaurant industry, but like the fancy restaurants in New York City. I worked in like a fast food kitchen, not like a fancy restaurant area at all. But this was so reminiscing of like the people that I met when I worked at like a fast food, and just like that messiness of life, and like the restaurant industry, a lot of people do drugs and all of that. So she becomes enamored with the boy that works at the restaurant, and she's just a very messy girl. So if you want to like feel better about yourself, read this book, because the main character makes so many like messy decisions that you'll be like, girl, I would never do that. But thank you for doing that for the plot. So there is a little bit of a love triangle situation in this too. Our main character wants to be a writer. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I really liked it. I know it sounds like I didn't, but I did. I did really enjoy this. The next book that I have is Oye by Melissa Mogollon. This one follows a Colombian American family, and it is a wonderful, wonderful audiobook because this is all told in phone calls. Our main character is calling her sister who is away in college, and she basically calls her and like tells her all the tea about what's been happening with her family. I love the main character in the story. I related a lot to her because this main character takes on like a lot of things of being like the caretaker of the family and like the translator and all of these different things. The book starts off with there is a storm going to Miami, and basically their grandma doesn't want to leave the house because she just wants to stay home while this storm is happening, and just basically her being like a stubborn abuelita. And I just found it's so funny. Also, it is really funny, and it just reminded me a lot of my family. So yeah, I love this, and the sister dynamic, and also the fact that it's all told in phone calls, like, and it's like one-sided phone calls, like you only hear the main character's side of the phone call, but you can gather what it's being said. But yeah, it was a wonderful book. I loved it. Very beautifully written. If you read anything by like Elizabeth Acevedo, it's very much reminiscent to those. The next book that I have is Taylor Jenkins Reid, Latest and Greatest, and that is Atmosphere. And this one follows Joan, and this is in the 1980s, I want to say, and this is when NASA opens up their first like space shuttle program for women scientists. And of course our main character is like a physics person, and she applies for this. And I really loved it. I love a woman in STEM book. It was wonderful. There is a very, very sweet love story at its center. Our main character is an auntie and her relationship with her niece. It's so beautiful. And also this book is set in like 2 different timelines. So it starts off, it's not a spoiler because it starts off this way, but it starts off with them in space and what's happening there and like how things are kind of going wrong. And then you go like back in time and see how they got there, but it kind of flip-flops between those 2 timelines. And I just love a book that does that. It was wonderful. Alrighty, and the very last book that I read recently that I loved, I'm giving you 8. I probably have more, but I'll leave it here. It is The Favorite by Layne Fargo. This is a library copy, as you can see the shininess. Zoraine recommended this book and I picked it up and I was like, oh my god, Zoraine, you just changed my life. This book is very reminiscent of like Taylor Jenkins Reid, Evelyn Hugo, or if you've read City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. It gives very much that. This one follows Katharina Shaw and Heath Rocha, and they are Olympic figure skaters, and they're a couple that does ice skating together. And basically you see their whole life from when they met when they were kids and how they became figure skaters and how they go to the Olympics. And this book has so much tea. It literally felt like I was like listening to a podcast or something of someone's real life and like what happened. It was amazing. Like the moment that I thought like this is the most tea this book is gonna get, there was more. There was more. I loved it. This was so juicy, and yeah, I will be recommending this to everyone. She was just so wonderful. Okay, those are all of the books that I read and loved so far this year. I hope that you saw a book that you've never seen before and that you added it to your TBR, or maybe I confirmed that you'll be reading it. If you are, let me know what you're planning on reading in the comments below. And I don't know, I will see you either in 6 months, or I kind of want to film an August TBR, but we'll see if I do that. But yeah, if you want to keep up with me, go to my Instagram because I'm always active there. So I'll see you later, hopefully soon. Bye.